and call this meeting to order at 7:02 and do roll call. This is the ad hoc committee meeting for the proposed residences at Sportsman's Lodge. And I'm the committee ad hoc chair, Barry Johnson, and I am here. Peter Cole.
I'm here.
Thanks. Marcia Newman.
Barry, I'm here.
Thank you. Adele Slaughter. Maybe a little late. And Gail Steinberg. Hi, Gail.
You hear me? Hi, I'm so sorry. My husband just tested positive for COVID, and I've read everything.
Oh, sorry to hear.
I know.
Always something, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how the heck he got it. He's been home.
Yeah.
It's very odd. And now, of course, the whole house is wearing N95 masks.
I gotcha. Okay.
I'm like,
All right.
Anyway.
All right. We'll watch for Adele signing in. And
Mary, did you get that I'm here? I was unmuted.
Yes,
for a
I
second.
did. I did,
Okay.
Marcia. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. So moving on to number 2, this is our first ad hoc committee meeting, so we have no past meeting minutes to approve. Number 3, update and committee goal by the committee chair. I guess the update is the fact that this ad hoc committee has been formed with hopefully the intent of eventually making a motion that our board can vote on regarding the residences at Sportsman's Lodge, and chiming in on if we are for or against, or for with conditions or against with conditions, that sort of thing. So that's what our goal is. Moving on to number 4, public comments on non-agenda items within the committee's jurisdiction. Does anybody have a public comment, members of the public, that is not part of tonight's agenda item number 6? Raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, press *9 if you do.
Oh.
All right, seeing none, we do not, and therefore we don't have any responses in number 5 to any public comments. Moving on to number 6, discussion and possible motion with respect to the proposed residences at Sportsman's Lodge project at 12805 Ventura Boulevard, Studio City 91604. And I guess I sort of went over our goal already, so I don't really need to repeat that. So I guess we may have more than one round of public comment. It's still yet to be determined, but our first round will be for 1 minute. And anybody members of the public that wish to speak, please raise your hand or press *9 if you're on the phone. Anyone? Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Thanks a lot, Barry. Yeah, I mean, glad to see everybody. I think we've got a couple of new faces in this committee. I have a couple of questions that we might try to answer, and having to do with kind of the framework of this the ad hoc committee's work and framework and structure. So I think that the first is, is this an ad hoc committee that's meeting once? Are we meeting weekly? Are we, is there a date certain when this process will come to a conclusion? Number two, is this the committee, or there are other folks that have signed on to be part of this? And then finally, I think the question that I'd like to throw in here, and by the way, for those that I haven't met, I'm Ben with Midwood. I'm the applicant for the project, so I'm here at the property pretty much every day, and we'll be able to answer questions as they come up. So, it's really a question of what are we evaluating the project against, right? So, is it just is this from a personal perspective? Is this from a perspective of other documents that have already been reviewed and approved by the neighborhood council, or by by different city agencies? So I think those are just some starting questions I have.
Oh, and you saw the links to on this agenda, so that's sort of the answer to what we're using for our review right now. The 5 committee members that we have were all, including myself, people that volunteered for this ad hoc committee. So we have had no more volunteers. So I believe that is it right now. And what was your third question?
Well, I think we've had, I think my first question was about timeframe.
Oh yeah. So I don't see us having more than 3 meetings. I think we might only have 2, and they will not be regularly scheduled. They're kind of going to be as we're ready for the next one. But I would say our next one could be within the next 2 weeks, and we do have to work around other neighborhood council meetings, so we don't end up with more than 1 Zoom meeting going on at a time.
Okay. Last point I'll make is I think there were some other folks that I've reached out to that have asked to be a part of this committee. I don't know if there was a deadline for submissions, but I don't see their names on here. So is there a process for joining the committee that we should be aware of?
There was, and we had one person that a 6th person that volunteered that bowed out. Scott, if there's anyone else, do
Sure.
you want them to let you know?
I can answer that. I did receive a request for 2 people from someone's assistant, who I immediately wrote back and said, these are the links, these are the things you need to read up on, and after you do that, contact me. I'm waiting to hear back. And there were also 2 emails that came in today, this evening, that I have not yet written back to. But the names on the agenda were the people who actually responded to my response in time to get the information to Barry to have them on the agenda. There are 4 other names, 2 from today, 2 from a few days ago, that have not yet responded to my response to their inquiry, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So we can add them, when and if Scott gets further response. But, in order to be a member of the committee, they've got to make that happen 3 days before our next agenda comes out. So,
okay.
Yeah, but I don't see us having a second meeting until the end of next week, or even the beginning of the week after that.
Mm-hmm.
So, because our neighborhood council has a lot going on next week. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. And anyone else at the moment? So Ben, in answer to one of your other questions, I would say for Studio City, over the 31 years of the specific plan, the community as a whole has stood behind the specific plan in terms of development. And even now with some state mandated exceptions, I get the impression that the community is still standing behind the specific plan with the state required exceptions for like density bonus and things like that. But if you look at the specific plan, it's the 17.5 miles are divided into 3 sections of sort of development in each of the 5 or 6 communities. And one of them's called regional commercial, which is like an area at Sepulveda and Ventura where there's obviously high rises. The next one down is called community commercial, which would be like in Studio City's case, the area between Laurel Canyon and Whitsett. It's where we have a lot of businesses. And then the third and lowest on the totem pole for development is called neighborhood and general commercial. And that's what the section of Ventura from Whitsett to Fulton falls under. And that type of development in that area of the plan really looks at adjacent residential housing around the area, much more so than, say, regional commercial, which has more of a buffer, say, at Sepulveda and Ventura. So I would think what we are looking at, you know, if I had to guess, I would say that this neighborhood council, when all is said and done, would probably vote to support this, but with conditions. And those conditions would be mostly based on what the specific plan has to say. And I'm just going to read from the specific plan one of its purposes. It says, to assure that an equilibrium is maintained between transportation infrastructure and land use development in the corridor and within each separate community of the Ventura-Cahuenga Boulevard corridor specific plan. Another thing it says is, this is from page 2 of the plan, it says to provide a compatible and harmonious relationship between residential and commercial development where commercial areas are contiguous to residential neighborhoods. And I would say the property at Sportsman's definitely falls under that is contiguous to residential neighborhoods for sure, which is one of the reasons it's in that third tier of neighborhood and general commercial. So I don't know, does anyone have anything they want to say at the moment? I'm going to go to Brandon first.
Thank you, Barry. I'm finally first in something. Yeah, I agree with what Barry's saying. I like what Ben and his team are doing over there. But before I moved into Studio City, one of the lures of Studio City was that it looks so unique. You know, there's something about Studio City that's unlike any part of the valley. It's very much like when you're on Sunset, you know immediately when you're in Beverly Hills. The landscape just suddenly changes. And I like that section of of Studio City, east of Coldwater, right around the Coldwater curve, all the way, really, past Laurel Canyon. It's got, I wouldn't say it's got like a beach town look to it, but there's not a lot of high rises. There's a few places like Crown Media and a few other buildings that have been around for a while. But the fact that there aren't a lot of tall structures, it creates a very open feel to it, a very non-claustrophobic. Like if you go through Encino, it's very claustrophobic along Ventura Boulevard. But when you're in Studio City, it's got an open feel to it, very spacious, very airy, and I really do love that. My fear about overdevelopment is that buildings, to maximize square foot usage, they're going to build all the way to the sidewalk and up. And that's going to basically make Studio City look more like Encino than Studio City. And I do like your project. I like what you're doing. I wish there was more of a setback. So when I'm driving by it, there are some trees. I know it's probably not doable, but I really do like that old school Sportsman's Lodge sign with the foliage. And it's not part of your plan, but I really do like that. It's iconic. And anything that can kind of break down the size of the project as you're driving by, I think would be beneficial. But overall, I kind of like what you guys are doing. I think it's a very unique approach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Marcia.
We can't hear you.
You're still muted.
What are the range of the rents? I have two questions. What are the range of the rents? And also, have you addressed security and safety concerns and the impact of this increased density on our already overstressed North Hollywood LAPD?
Let's see, in terms of the rents, we're going to have 85% of these homes will be leased at market rate. So the rent will be whatever the market rent is when the project's finally completed. And if it were built today, it would probably be, studios for $1,600, $1,800, something like that. And, 2 bedrooms for, I don't know, $3,000 to $5,000. But that's completely speculative. It is obviously driven by the market, and when the project is finally completed and whenever that time comes, we'd have to look at what that's why they're called market rate. see what we can rent them for. We will be providing a variety of sizes. We think that this is going to attract a lot of different types of residents. And so there will be studios, there'll be 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, some of them with dens, designed for people to live here, work here, and keeping in mind the people that are already working in the area that don't have the money for a down payment or just looking for a different kind of a lifestyle. That's who we're thinking about right now when we're thinking about this project. And then 15% or 78 of the apartments will be reserved for households of a very low income, which is a defined income level. I think it's today, $41,000 to $50,000 per household based on how many people are in the household. And so those rents are prescribed by the city, and they're anywhere from, I think, $600 to $850 a month.
And the second question, not related, but how are you addressing security and safety concerns and the impact that will have on our North Hollywood LAPD?
I'm not sure how to answer this question, because my first response is I don't see security concerns coming out of new mixed-use housing development such as this. I mean, if anything, when you have a lot of people living together, all having their eyes on the same sidewalk and the same front door and the same back door and the same river path, like having lots of activity from early morning to late night usually makes things safer, and people feel safer. People here are going to be invested in the security of everything around. And then we also have, some pretty high-end retail tenants on the ground floor that require their own security. So we currently have 24-hour security guards, patrolling the property, which we'd continue to have, plus security cameras. So I think maybe the question is, in terms of the larger community, I'm not sure what the answer to that question is, but and the other thing is, this is in the scope of how many people live in this community. The new residents here will, it's a fraction of the people that are already living here. So I don't see it kind of materially contributing to safety, police calls or something like that.
Okay, I mean, many of the issues that we have here in Studio City, not so much violent crime, but it's car theft, it's getting into apartment buildings, A lot of it's car theft and burglary.
Mhm.
And it's hard to track down. Are you going to be providing an ISP service,
What's that?
internet service provider? Are you going to be offering? Usually it's a regional monopoly like Spectrum or AT&T. Are you going to be offering that everyone will have access to only one ISP?
No. I think it's actually, I think it's mandated by the federal government for residences. You have to provide some sort of a choice in that.
You have to have a choice. Okay.
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's your last name, by the way?
It's Besley.
How do you spell it?
B as in boy, Esley.
Okay. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Marcia.
Thank you
And
very much.
just a couple housekeeping notes. Adele Slaughter joined us at approximately 7:12. She's here. Thank you, Adele. And we're not really going by 1 minute times because obviously there's going to be questions of Ben. So we'll just keep it more informal and free flowing, which is, in my opinion, what an ad hoc committee should be. So we will go next to Peter Cole.
Hi there. Hi, Ben. Wanted to ask you or Barry or whomever knows, instead of an EIR, this time we have another document, a SCEA. Is that what we're looking for this time instead
That's
of an
right.
That's correct?
Yes.
Do you have an idea when that will drop and we can see that?
Yes. It may be published as soon as Thursday. We might have confirmation on that tomorrow.
So when these things get published, are they just put on the city planning website, or is everybody within 500 feet or 1,000 feet notified? How does that work?
I think they're just put on the city website. I don't think there is a mail notification.
Okay, so there's no method that I know of to subscribe to these websites for changes besides third-party software. So if there's a deadline on reviewing these documents, I think it's important that the city or you or whomever notify the ad hoc and the public.
As I said when we met on the 11th, I will let Scott know once it's confirmed it's going to publish, and as soon as the moment I have that link, I'll forward it on to Scott, and I'll thank Scott in advance for doing this distribution to everybody.
Okay, and then I have the typical Peter Cole dumb question. The purpose of this ad hoc is to review what you've submitted, and if you submitted something that's well within your rights to build, what would we weigh in on that would be seriously considered for changes? So for instance, since I'm one of the closest residents there, we've already had conversations about not seeing the project, which we need to have further comments on. But, just like all the balconies that are so close facing to the north might be problematic with loud folks who are on their balconies, and that's going to be shooting up into our neighborhood. Is there any consideration for that if that's an issue? Or are we just strictly going by, you're legally allowed to do this, and it's up to us to figure out if there's any wiggle room in that?
Well, should I answer that, Barry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think the stated purpose of the ad hoc committee obviously is to, eventually form a motion. So I think what we're doing here is we're just understanding the various topics that might make it into that motion. And, certainly when we, come across a concern like noise, we'll look at what the city ordinances and laws are and what has to get studied, in all these submittals that we're making. I'll do my best to where we can't, where there isn't anything more to do than what's required by ordinance or law, try to at least provide some more information about what specifically is being designed and what the impacts might be. So in the case of, the visual impact, which you and I have talked about, I think that the best option that we have is to look at some kind of visual, it's some sort of visual element that would complete, or not complete, but kind of continue the obscuring nature of the eucalyptus trees that are already there at the end of alcove. And as we've talked about, there's a couple of suggestions in terms of some kind of a designed gate or planting, and that really comes down to how much room is left in the city right of way and the county's property to actually plant something or put a structural foundation for the post. In terms of balconies and noise, I can see a concern about having noise coming from balconies, but there's so many apartment buildings, large and small, that we can go stand by on a Friday evening or anytime, and it's not how most people live. And in fact, there's even the apartment building right there on Coldwater that kind of backs up right behind on the other side of alcove, and those all have balconies, and we don't see that there. So I can appreciate the concern, but this is not like a college town where people are going to be celebrating. Maybe they will if they're football.
That's that other project down the street, Ben. Sure. So does it make sense?
Can I add something? My name is Ira Handelman. I work with Ben. Peter, the other thing is that Midwood, which has been a long-term owner of the property and it intends on staying a long-term, it's called management of the building and relationship with the community. So they're going to keep in touch with this neighborhood council ongoing. And if there were complaints from your neighborhood on a disruptive tenant, people have to sign a lease and there's certain behaviors involved. And if they're not good tenants, they can be dealt with. So Midwood has a long-term stake in the property. They're going to stay in the property. So I think as a good neighbor, just like Ben has been responding to issues on the shops, I think that there'll be management. And if there are people that don't honor their lease and behave properly, they can be asked to leave. So I think management is a lot of some of the concerns you have. And I believe that Midwood, with its long-term holdings, is going to make sure that the building's managed correctly.
Okay. Then last question on this SCEA document. Maybe it's a question for Barry. Does it make sense to meet before this document, or probably not? We would kind of wait for this document to drop, have some time to digest it, and then meet again?
Yes. And hopefully, like Ben said, it'll be out soon. So maybe it will even be out, several days before our next meeting. So I guess we'll play it by ear. But we won't stop what we're doing just waiting for it either. But we probably won't do a concluding motion until we have that.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have to drop off, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye.
Thanks. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, my question was during the last meeting, it was mentioned that Midwood was going to create a website for the neighborhood to keep them up to date as to what's going on with the project. Is this something still in your plans that you might be able to drop city documents into, so the residents don't have to go searching through city planning or wait for the neighborhood council, that they would have a first look at it through this website?
Yeah, the website, we thought it would be up by now as well. We're just the vendor who's building the website, we had to request a couple of edits, and they're just taking longer than we thought. But I expected to have something to share and for Scott to distribute for the July 11th meeting. So it's it's behind schedule, but as soon as we have it, we'll again distribute the website, and we'll have links to all of the city documents.
All right, go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, my question is pretty simple. When it comes to doing the finish of the building, brown coat, scratch coat, etc., vinyl coat, is there any way to make it so the exterior of the building from the outside is more absorptive rather than reflective of any stray noises? I'm talking about noise from without that would bounce back across the river again, or the alcove.
That's an interesting question. I couldn't tell you the acoustic properties of one type of exterior finish versus another, but I'll ask and I'll get some information for you on that, Richard.
I think La Habra stucco gives you a choice if there is a choice.
Yeah. I know we will have a variety of different materials on the finishes. And so, and some of this, well, I think we know enough to at least give you that response of like, what the range of, absorbing versus reflecting qualities are of the different materials we're looking at.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Marcia. Unmute.
Hi, Ben. Two other questions. How many resident managers will you have? And have you made arrangements for pet relief areas?
Resident managers, I don't have off the top of my head a staffing plan that would say how many property managers might be in the building at any given time. It will be staffed 24 hours a day. Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know specifically how many managers. I imagine it would be, again, it'll be managed like many of the larger apartment buildings that we see, in the area. So it'll have full-time professional staff. They're Midwood staff. So we don't contract with third parties. It's all folks that work directly for Midwood. We have an asset manager who's actually here on site, and he's responsible for managing the property manager here, as well as our property managers for two historic buildings that we own near MacArthur Park and Westlake. So we would hire everybody internally. They'd be Midwood employees.
And pet relief areas.
Absolutely. That's part of our, the profile of the folks that we think will be renting here is people that have pets. And so we're looking at both pet relief areas within the residential areas for the people that live here, and also pet relief areas and water for pets on the Los Santos River bike path.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Going to call in user 1. Go ahead. Press *9.
Hi,
Hi.
thank you. It's Ruth. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering what impact this would have on density for Studio City. On vacancy, because I think last time I was able to view information was from the 2017 census American Home Survey, and it said that we were at like 7% or 1,081 vacancies. And I was just wondering, if any of them are going to be taking Section 8, the affordable ones, and how intake is going to be done. Is it going to be done through the CES, or is it going to be done directly through the building, or? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ruth. So in terms of vacancy, I couldn't tell you what impacts on vacancy. Would obviously bring a number of new homes, rental homes into the market, and it'll take some time to fill those. So there'd probably be a statistical uptick in vacancy. But we think we'll be offering something that is somewhat differentiated from other homes in the area. In terms of, I think I forgot your second question, but I think your third question was in terms of, Section 8, no, these are all income restricted, deed restricted with income limits, and the intake happens through us. We have to verify incomes, and then we report all new tenants and and then annually report back to the housing department, which used to be HCID, on the verification of income for all of those tenants.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And the other thing I'd like to add is that all these units are not there are no subsidies. It's subsidized by the project. These are not government subsidized housing. It's all subsidized through the development itself. So all 78, I think it's a deed restriction of 55 years. This is all paid for as part of the project. No government funds are used to subsidize these very low income units.
Go ahead, Richard.
Will there be any no smoking areas, no smoking anything, I guess, areas, or any other restrictions as to conduct or anything else for the tenants there? I know they're paying money, but I'm wondering, are there restrictions as to bothering other tenants?
Yeah, we can enforce our own rules and regulations for the tenants that are here. You know, I think we have also a code of conduct for guests. And in terms of smoking, we haven't looked into that. Is there what would be your concern, Richard?
Just walking out your door and walking into a cloud of smoke. It's no more complicated than that.
All right. Yeah. No, I think that is. We will, thinking about it right now, I think we're going to promote a smoke-free environment. And then there's additional, regulations that have to do with distance from commercial and residential property for smoking. It's like smoking and smoke.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Barry. Hi, Ben. A stakeholder wanted me to ask you the specific size of the studio apartment.
We're not sure yet.
Okay.
We have a kind of a conceptual plan that probably puts the average size around 550 square feet. But that would be, the next level of analysis is to truly try to break down the difference between different unit programs, which ones are going to be smaller versus larger versus having dens. So I will say though that right now I think the average size of the apartments is over 800 square feet, which is well above average for new apartments in Los Angeles. And we're intending to build these to be, for places people can live, for a long time and be very comfortable.
But for the studio itself, you don't have the number yet.
We just haven't gone that far. Yeah, okay. We don't have a number yet.
And then just a couple housekeeping issues. You mentioned you would get the committee the slides from your July 11th. If we can get those, that would be very helpful. And also, if you plan on doing a 3D rendering, like was previously discussed, something that looks like a Google map, where you can sort of zoom in and pan around from all different angles, I think that would help with a lot of the visualizations. And lastly, how will the employees of the Sportsman's Landing or this Sportsman's residence, how will their applications for the very low income apartments be handled in relation to the people who don't work on site?
Let's see. I'm sorry, I had a hard time. I was trying to keep up with your question. So let me answer the last one first, and then we can go back.
Okay.
In terms of the process for verifying and then eventually selecting the very low income households, we are committed. We are committing and are committed to providing these income restricted units to people that work within a half a mile of this property. So that's essentially Whitsett to Fulton. And we're doing that because, it really, number one, it helps build the community, right? Like if you're living next door to the person who's working close by, you automatically have more in common. It also accomplishes, a lot of public policy goals of just reducing car trips and reducing, highway trips and things like that. In terms of the difference between a an employee here at one of our, retailers or restaurants versus somebody nearby, I think we'll have to, and we don't have an answer for this, so it's a good question. I hadn't thought about it before, but I think what we'd want to do is think about again, they have to qualify for their income, but also I think just try to be mindful of like who has already been working here for a long time, right? So they're going to take an apartment, and they're going to, the community is going to see the benefit of it. The traffic congestion is going to see the benefit of it, as opposed to somebody who might be here on a more, shorter term basis. And then we're going to have to go refill that apartment at some point. So I don't know how we do that. That's just off the top of my head, but I think that's probably the next consideration after, working within a certain distance.
And then finally, in the environmental report, the SCEA, does the hydrology report, is that embedded inside of that, or is the hydrology report a separate report?
Are you talking about like the stormwater hydrology?
All I know is this was a question from someone else who wanted me to ask it.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes and yes. I mean, whether it measures stormwater, it analyzes the stormwater, capacity, how the property is going to handle stormwater, and then also handles the the groundwater question. That's more of a geology question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, call in user 1.
Hi. Is this? I can't imagine it's the first time this has happened, but I think that area is a bid, and is this like the unique situation with a residential building being in a business improvement district? And I also wanted to inquire about tree removal and sound. If there's balconies or construction facing the river, it reverberates the sound. It like echoes. Have you looked into that? Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, we are. This property is in the business. It's the Studio City Business District. I've been a board member since I started here 5 years ago for that organization. And this property is I think we're the second or third largest contributor to that annual fund, based on just the size of this property. And that organization funds, all kinds of additional security on Ventura Boulevard and marketing programs and support for property owners and tenants. And I am certain there are other residential projects in the bid, but on the top of my head, I can't tell you where the major ones are. So that's actually a great question, Ruth. We have to figure out if our bid assessment is going to change based on any growth of the building. And I'm so sorry, what was your first question?
Thank you. Tree removal and acoustics.
Oh, tree removal and acoustics. So yes, the construction plan will require the removal of most of the trees that are here. We are preserving some of the trees in our plan and relocating them. We've actually got a couple of trees that we've preserved from the original construction of the shops project that we're waiting to put in the ground in a permanent location. And then in terms of noise, we have an acoustic study as part of the SCIA, that's our CEQA document, and it calls for essentially sound walls around the perimeter of the property at various heights and made of various materials based on the adjacent or nearby uses.
All right, go ahead, Gail.
Thank you.
Hi. I was looking at the parking situation. Can we address how many parking spots? It said that there's 1,358, I believe, parking spots. And will each of these apartments have 2 parking spots? And if so, where are employees going to park? And then all the people that go to the shops, where are they going to park?
All right, you're very close on the number. That currently designed at 1,385 parking spaces.
Dyslexic. Go ahead.
Okay, and that is a calculation based on the code required parking for for the residents, which may have 1 or 2 parking spaces, depending on the size of the number of bedrooms in the apartment. And then the commercial is based on a formula of, how much restaurant space versus retail space. 25% of our new commercial space would be dedicated for restaurant, which has a much higher parking requirement. And then that also assumes that some number of the employees also park there. And some number of the employees arrive here either through public transit, carpool, finding alternate parking at a city lot or something like that.
So
All right, go ahead.
Are you in anticipation that you're going to have plenty of parking for all of that? And if not, where is that overflow actually going to be?
Yeah.
Like what parking lot, what structure?
Yeah. Well, parking is one of these issues where you've got a lot of forces at play here. You've got you've got demand, right? We've got residents who want to park their cars. We've got our shoppers who want to come here and park, and they want that to be convenient. You've got employees that some of them need to drive here, some of them don't. And so, it's number one, it's designed to accommodate all of that at peak periods of time, and that's part of the traffic and parking analysis is looking at what those requirements are. But really the bigger part of it, and this is what we're learning with the Shops project, is it's much more about the management of it, because there are so many ways to manage things differently. The moving around of cars, valet parking, tandem parking, stackers, using the tenants actually are looking, we're talking with Equinox right now about how they schedule their classes so they can avoid some of the busiest times, how they can shift their, the timing of their shifts, not changing the way they do business, but adjusting them so that we can make sure we always have plenty of employee parking. So you can build as many parking spaces as you want. It always feels like there's never enough. But the way it works well is just by managing it actively. And again, this is all stuff that we do, ourselves at Midwood. And in terms of additional employee parking, there's actually a number of parking lots around. Probably the one that's the most obvious is the one that's about 0.6 of a mile east on Ventura Boulevard. There's a city parking lot with, I think, 300 some parking spaces available, which is very underutilized. So, we'll look at that. And, I think the other dynamic though, that we're facing, and it's happening at not only a city level and the state level, but the requirements for parking are going down. The public policy is pushing us towards less parking and making it more expensive, so that it really encourages people to use public transit, to share rides, to use, rideshare services, which have obviously become, ubiquitous in the last 10 years or so. So, we certainly have designed as much parking as we think we need. We also recognize that it's going to take a big effort to manage that properly. And then, I think all new developments in Los Angeles are kind of at the margin of, trying to implement public policy to encourage people to not drive your car if you don't have to. And then the last thing I'll say about this is that, one of the benefits of having the shopping center adjacent to this development and having the Los Angeles River right next to it is it's already going to reduce, the affordable housing is going to reduce trips. Having grocery stores, clothing stores, restaurants, recreation, the river, things like that right next door, it's just going to reduce the number of times you actually need to get in your car to come and go.
Okay, I'm going to read something from page 37 of the specific plan. It's under transportation mitigation standards and procedures. And under number 1, limitations, it says, unless the environmental review concludes that the mitigation measures proposed by the applicants are sufficient to reduce the traffic impacts to a level of insignificance, no building permit, demolition permit, excavation permit, foundation permit, or grading permit shall be issued for any project with a floor area of 10,000 square feet or more. And then it goes on to say, if the Department of Transportation, as part of the environmental review process, determines that the project's proposed mitigation measures are not adequate to reduce the impact to a level of insignificance, then the department may recommend an increase in mitigation measures and or a reduction in size of the project and or a limitation on the proposed land uses to the applicant. I'm wondering how your environmental document has addressed this from the specific plan.
The environmental document will show that we do not have any unmitigatable impacts.
Despite the fact that even though Ventura Boulevard has a highway classification, Coldwater Canyon does not, and we've already seen just with what has opened problems on that narrow set stretch of Coldwater. So, you know, you can't bring 1,300 cars into a neighborhood and not say it's not going to have an impact. I would think. And there certainly aren't 1,300 cars there now from what is open there.
We also have the issue of Harvard Westlake and their complaint about no parking as well. That certainly won't come to you, but who knows? I don't know.
Well, I think, I mean, we can talk, we can spend many hours talking about parking and traffic. I mean, this is the kind of thing that, you know, as you would imagine, it's something that we in real estate development, especially in Los Angeles, are contending with all the time, is kind of thinking about the impact of traffic and replacing certain economic uses with higher and better economic uses and what that means for traffic. But just to kind of take it at the level of the specific plan, and then also kind of the level of perhaps some information that will maybe give you some comfort, maybe it won't, is in the terms of the specific plan, from what you've read, if they're talking about impacts that can't be mitigated, and I'm telling you that the environmental document will show that we don't have any unmitigatable impacts. So that, I mean, from the letter of the specific plan, if you're quoting from it, that's not the issue. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a concern that there could be, additional times where there's more traffic and parking. And I think what I hear the concern asking about, is there enough parking? Like, what happens when, employees need to find a place to park, or resident guests can't find a place to park? Are they going to park in my neighborhood? So we've got to think about, mitigations to prevent that from happening. But, in general, Midwood is a long-term holder. We've owned the hotel. We invested in the hotel originally in 1961. We've owned it for, at least 30 years. We don't intend on ever selling this project once it's built. And so we're going to live with this. We will, if we create a bad parking problem, we're going to live with it. If we create, a bad traffic situation where our residents can't get out of the driveway, like, we'll live with it. We're not going to do that. We will study it backwards and forwards. We'll work with BOE, DOT, whoever we have to, and we'll get it right. We've done lots of analysis on this. We've looked at it lots of different ways, and it is a busy intersection. It's a busy intersection because a lot of people want to live here and a lot of people want to be here. And again, all I can point to is that this type of living, this type of mixed use living, where a lot of things that you need in your day and your weekend are right here, is going to reduce the number of trips. So again, I don't know if I'll convince anybody in this call, but we need to convince ourselves, because we're obviously making a big investment to try to improve this place.
And one other quick question before I go to call in user one. I'm curious, on page 14 of the specific plan, it says the following floor area ratio shall apply to projects within the neighborhood and general commercial plan designations, which is what you are in. And it says no project may exceed a maximum floor area ratio of 1.0 to 1. you know, how do you justify a higher floor area ratio based on that?
Well, the way, well, there's, I think, again, we can take it at the level of the specific plan and then more of like the general justification. I think that the specific plan did not limit density. It didn't say that we can't build 632 apartments here, which is actually what's allowed by right. It only limited the amount of square feet we could use to build it and how tall we could build it. That's what the limitations are in the specific plan.
So by right, you could build 600 and something, all at with no higher than 30 feet for that specific plan. What's allowed in the specific plan there before any bonuses?
It would be a very strange looking building, but yes, we could.
All right, let's go to call-in user number 1.
Hi. Are there going to be any limitations on short-term vacation rentals popping up, or are there going to be like any subleases or anything? I forgot if this is going to be fully rental or if people are going to be able to own these. But mostly my question is about Airbnbs. Like, are people going to be doing that?
Well, no, we will be doing all the leasing, and so all of our leasing will be, you know, standard apartment leasing, and all
Okay,
we're not intending to. At this point, we're not intending to sell any of the units.
Okay, so there won't be any Airbnbs or short-term vacation rentals?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna, I have one other thing to ask Ben on for myself. I'm just curious. So we have a specific plan that says it can be 30 feet. We have the density bonus that says the 15% units that you qualify for with the density bonus can be another 11 feet. I would like to hear how you get from 41 feet to 78 feet, not including elevator shafts, how you get from 41 to 78, and in that process, which things are exceptions or variances, which I say the industry mistakenly calls the word that you all use, entitlements. It's not entitlements, but that's what everyone calls it. An entitlement is a variance or an exception. So I guess what I'm saying is, what exceptions or variances are you asking the community to go along with to get from 41 to 78 feet?
I am going to respectfully punt most of that question until the next meeting, because I'll invite our land use attorney to give you the precise answer to that. I can give you a very general answer, and I'm definitely not. I do not mean to dodge it. And if, Perry, if you want to talk directly with our land use attorney, we can set that up. I'm just saying I don't want to mess this one up.
Okay.
But I think that in summary, it gets back to the last response that I was giving, is that the underlying density and zoning for this area before the specific plan was applied was 632 apartments before a density bonus. So if we apply the density bonus with the level of affordability, number of affordable units and the level of affordability, using state law, we could build, I think it's 920 something apartments. So it's, you know, the point of the law, as I understand it, is where I'm kind of stepping out, you know, over my skis a little bit, is that it's to take places where there's underlying density in commercial areas that have otherwise been restricted by, you know, certain development standards, and say, in light of our housing crisis, and for all of the benefits, you know, for all of the benefits that this project will bring, 78 households at very low income have an opportunity to live here without having to drive very far to get to work, opening up the Los Angeles River, bringing more retail opportunities, all of the good things that I want to tell you about. Like, for all of these things, we need to be able to let the building, like, accommodate those homes, those apartments. So that's essentially what it is. It's saying this is kind of unlocking the density, underlying density that was here. And in that, and this is where our land use attorney Dave will give you more of the specifics. It gets into how does the city ordinance read it, how does the state law treat it, and we'll give you sort of more of a justification for it.
Okay, and it's just interesting because on the implementing density bonus implementing ordinance, for that 11 additional feet bonus for the restricted affordable units, it says for each foot of additional height, the building shall be set back 1 horizontal foot. And also when you say 600 something units could be built if everything was no taller than 30 feet, I don't know if that was calculation was done including the specific plan setback requirements all around the property. So, I mean, that's another question for your land use person, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I don't know if this question's been answered yet, but if it has been, I'm sorry. Talking about going for the employees of the area and people in the area first. You mentioned this in the last meeting that your preference is to occupy these apartments with people who work in Studio City or who already live in Studio City, like you just mentioned, a shorter commute. Do you guys already have a plan in effect as to how you're going to reach out to the community? Are you going to go to the individual businesses? How are you going to do that to get the word out that the residents, the stakeholders, Studio City people who work here, people who live here, have first dibs at these apartments? Do you guys already have a plan in mind on how you're going to spread the word?
I mean, not any more than kind of what you've just generally described. I mean, I think that we think there's, going to be more than 78 households that would be interested in this. And so there's going to have to be a certain, certain element of again, thinking about trying to achieve the public policy goals and the community goals, and just general fairness. We haven't put together a plan, much more detailed than what you've described, but I think it really is, again, within people that are within a half mile of here, we would like everybody to know about it. We'll canvass every business. We'll go to the bid. We'll advertise it through the neighborhood council and the residents association. And, if somebody qualifies, then we would like to have them apply.
All right, thanks. Go ahead, Chip.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Ben and Ira, for coming here. One of the questions that we brought up during the presentation, Ben, and I don't think we sort of answered it, is on the face of it, it is a heavily built project on the site. There's a lot of hardscape. There's not a lot of trees. It feels that there's going to be a carbon impact. It certainly doesn't feel that the project could be carbon negative. Where are you? And we talked vaguely about some low flow, plumbing, and there was a kind of an idea about solar panels, but in that whole sphere of it doesn't feel very green, where do you position the project?
Well, I will, let me see if I can find something can I share something here, Barry?
Let me see. Yeah, I think so.
Let's see if I can find something here.
You just have to push to share your screen.
Yeah.
All right. Sometimes this is a really wonky image, so it takes a while to come up. But I'll start answering your question, Chip. It is, I think we would have to start by kind of defining what is green. I think we're talking about water conservation. These would be extremely green homes. They don't have their own lawns. They don't have their own yards. They share yard space. They share common space. And they also have, the latest low flow everything. And so their water consumption is going to be much less than a typical household in Studio City. In terms of energy efficiency, they share walls. And so the amount of heat that's escaping, through the outside of the building is much less. And it's obviously, modern construction. And so you've got a much more energy efficient building. Solar panels, I think they're going to become mandatory by the time we're building this, but we would, we're doing it elsewhere in other projects around the United States, and we would certainly do it here. And also just looking at, the latest building management systems. So you're talking about, common area lighting and air conditioning, and those sorts of things. So I think it is going to be a very environmentally friendly building with about as efficient use in terms of energy and water as one can have. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is what I wanted to share is this image I had last time is, this is on our site kind of laid into the surrounding community. This would be 520 apartments. So think about how much space, just look to the north of the river and it's a couple of blocks, right? How many homes is that? That's like, I don't know, 40. I mean, if you think about the energy efficiency and the water efficiency of those properties compared to these apartments, it's, it's night and day.
Go ahead, Gail.
Sorry. Are you doing solar on the roof?
Yes.
Oh, you are. Is the shopping center also solar on the roof?
The shopping center is not.
Okay. It's good to know.
I'll tell you something, and I'd be happy to, if you want to join me in the lobbying effort, we would do this. So it's my understanding, and I have it on good authority, that the city of Los Angeles will not allow you to meter power or water that you generate. And so we looked at doing solar panels, but then we immediately were confronted with the fact that we can't actually, we would give it to the tenants. And we couldn't actually have the tenants pay for it. And so it sort of didn't make sense. If any tenant wanted to do their own solar and power their buildings, then we would, be more than happy to let them do that. But the issue we have,
part of their rent.
The issue, no, we did all kinds of like formulas and things like that, and you just have so many different kinds of businesses, it gets very complicated. But the point is, this is there is a much larger conversation about how LADWP is, some legacy legal issues that they have that prevent sometimes, developments from doing what I think we all would agree is the right thing. So again, if anybody wants to join me in that lobbying effort.
Okay, anybody else at this point? So I think what we will do is we won't exactly make another committee meeting date right this second. Let's wait and see if Ben gets the environmental report Thursday maybe, and Scott will let us all know and send it. Oh, I'll get to you, Brandon. And I have some more stuff to send out to you as well. So I think we will be getting more stuff to all the committee members before we schedule another ad hoc committee meeting. And before we end or go on to the next items, let's go to Brandon.
Yeah, just a quick question based on what Ben is showing us. Bottom right-hand corner looks like the entrance to the underground parking, correct?
That's correct.
I guess there's enough of a lead in, but it looks like there might be a blind spot on the left-hand side of that building right up against the sidewalk. I don't think it's going to be a problem. I'm not an expert on building structures like this, but I guess going in west, you can see the traffic, but coming east, you probably can see it. But
What about pedestrians?
how many entrances are they going to? There's going to be an entrance there in the top left, correct?
Yes.
Where you enter Sportsman's Landing. If you continue, there'll be another entrance to the underground parking too as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Okay, that's all. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Go ahead, Gail.
Is that, well, I had two questions. One, is that parking, is it a pitched that goes down, or is it gentle and then goes down?
No, it would start as sort of a gentle slope, but then it would get relatively steep. In both cases, it's got to get down a pretty significant grade based on grade change from Ventura Boulevard going north. And also what we're trying to accomplish on the north side is that ramp from Coldwater actually goes under a building and brings your car down to the river level pretty quickly. So those are engineering questions that we have kind of a hold on, because there's other, building maintenance vehicles that have got to get in there, and that's going to be the next level of engineering. But I think to answer your question, there would be an apron, closer to the sidewalk that's relatively flat, but then the ramps would have to get a little bit steeper.
So when they're coming up, they have to rev their car and they're blind until they're flat onto Ventura Boulevard. The car, as they come up.
I think if I hear the concern correctly, it's that we need to look at the the line of sight and pedestrian, kind of potential conflicts with pedestrians at these ramps. I think the way that cars, I live on a street that happens to have a pretty significant grade, and I know my car can, stop itself once I take my foot off the accelerator. So I don't imagine cars having to race up the ramp. But I understand, for both of these questions, that there's a concern that if you've got a ramp that's coming out of a building, if it's you've got to look at light change, and that kind of thing to make sure that, if you're driving out, you're not going to obviously run into somebody. That's actually a great point.
Right, that's crossing.
Yep.
Do you live in the area?
Kinda. I'm here at the hotel every day, so I live here when the sun's up. I live in Los Feliz at night.
Okay.
And both of those ramps, by the way, will be coming up to signals, which aren't there now.
Right.
I know, but we also know how people push them.
Yeah.
And when you're coming out of a parking lot, you don't anticipate it. But we can't be foolproof, but we can be as vigilant about this as possible.
Go ahead, call in user 1.
Hi. I think there used to be like a spring or like an aquifer or something like under the hotel, and it got interrupted by an earthquake. Have you run into that or anything? I know it's a weird question, but also, is there going to be access directly to the river, for the people that live there to walk? And is that going to be open all the time? And is it going to be wheelchair, ADA accessible? Thank you.
Yep. Yes, there was a spring here historically. We had to cap it and decommission it through the county it's underneath one of the buildings for the shops. So it's and I don't know anything about an earthquake affecting it, but it was a I don't know if it was working, but it was certainly we could have gotten it working if we weren't going to put a building on top of it. And then in terms of the access to the river, yes, there will be ADA access from Coldwater. We're rebuilding the ramp, and then there will be an elevator as well for people who don't want to take the stairs. But the main feature is a large staircase from the retail level down to the river.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on this tonight? So like I was saying, there will be more to come to all of our committee members as we receive things. And I'll get, yeah. And oh, thank you. I was trying to do that too.
Yeah, so was I.
And as soon as we have this information, particularly the environmental information, we'll be able to schedule another meeting. So watch for that. Those of you that are members of the community stakeholders, are the main Studio City Neighborhood Council webpage that announces upcoming meetings. You will see information there with the agenda once we know when it's going to be. So watch for that for the additional next meeting, and we will put links on that agenda for anything that we receive from Ben in the meantime. So anybody else? Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. I think I just wanted to recap. First of all, I really, really appreciate this opportunity to talk with all of you because, we've made presentations before. I've talked with a number of you individually. There are some of the concerns we've talked about before. Some of them are new, and I really appreciate, some of these comments because they are things that in certain cases I haven't thought of before. So it's helpful for me. And I think this is great, just to be able to engage at this level of detail with this core group of people that's very focused on this project. So I just want to say I appreciate Barry, your and Scott's effort to pull this together. And then also, I do want to. It's not my place. I know this is Barry and Scott are the co-chairs of this, but I would like to have the motion that will eventually may come out of this committee. I would urge the group to think about the sort of the basis of comparison. And I liked how Barry was actually referencing different parts of the specific plan and looking at that, because I think there are concerns about the project. Everything that everyone's mentioned, security and the energy efficiency and the green nature of the project, like these are all things that we want to have. We do have answers for, and we want to explain, but some of that starts to fall outside of what's actually in the specific plan. And so maybe I don't think we should stop talking about them, but it's more a matter of putting, if the motion is going to evaluate something, it might be instructive for us so that we can, organize our own response and our own information to think about what is specific plan related, not specific plan related, impact to the immediate community versus larger community. And then also I will continue to advocate for the benefits of this. So we need to talk about the concerns and make sure they're taken care of. But I think we also need to give voice to the fact that, this is providing housing, much needed housing, affordable housing, river access. We think it's a well-designed project. And, for all the concerns that are being raised, we'd like to make sure we're talking about, all aspects.
Okay, thanks. The other thing is the motion we end up having could say we support or don't support unless something is done. And at that point, you would have the chance to decide if you want to do the unless you change something aspect, and then a new motion might come forward too. That's always a possibility as well.
Yeah.
So never say never on anything. All right. I'm going to move on to number 7 then. Comments from committee members on subject matter within the committee's jurisdiction. Anybody on that? I'm guessing not. Okay, I'll move on to number 8, closing comments by the committee chair. Pretty much what I've already said regarding our next meeting. We will play it by ear. We'll await more documents from Ben, and as we get them via Scott, and hopefully soon the environmental document, we can schedule our next meeting. So that's pretty much all I have. Anyone else?
I just want to
You
say,
want it? Yeah.
Gary, this is going to be on the Studio City Neighborhood Council YouTube page before 10 o'clock. It has to process first through Zoom, and as soon as the processing is done, I will upload it. And anyone who wants to review what was said or tell anyone else to tune in, it's going to be at our website, on our YouTube.
All right. Sounds good. And with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn at 8:22. Do I have a second?
Second. Am I allowed to do that?
A second from a committee member?
Sorry.
Second, I'll second it.
Oh, yeah, thank you. All right, all in favor of adjourning? I'm in favor. Scott? Yep. Gail?
Yes.
Thank you, Gail. All right. And we've lost the rest of our members at this point. So we
Hey,
are, that's
Do you have any
unanimous.
COVID tests, Barry?
Do I what?
Do you have any COVID tests?
I do. I've got like 8 boxes because I.
Oh my
I
God, can I come and get some? Everybody's out.
I'll bring them over to you.
Oh, I love you. Thank you so much,
You
Barry.
don't want to have to leave. Yeah, I'll walk them over.
Do you need something? Do you want dinner? We have food.
No. It's probably better if I don't come in your house.
Oh, that's true. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we're adjourned.
I have 6 people in the house, so whatever you can spare, I would love it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And with that, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.